Hi, everyone. It's Denise Brown from the Caregiving Years Training Academy, and welcome to our Caregiving Book Club. This podcast brings you authors who have been inspired by their caregiving experience to write caregiving books. And we talk about the writing process, the inspiration process, and what it's like to put your book out into the world. So I'm grateful to be joined by my friend, Rebecca Warner. Hi, Rebecca.
Hi, Denise. Thank you for having me. It's nice to see you again.
Yeah, it's great to see you. You are the author of My Dad, My Dog.
Yes,
And you released the book tell me when you released the book.
November 2020. So it's been
Okay.
out a little over 6 months now.
Okay, so when did you write the book?
It was a process. It was not written quickly. It was written over a 2.5 year period. And through the editing and everything. And then I put it out after I wrote it to agents. And I would get responses that they really liked the writing, they really liked the story, but they weren't sure that there was a market for this book. And I kept getting that response over and over. What was interesting was I just thought, I don't care. I'm going to get this book out. There's one way or another. And I was lucky enough to find a publisher who, the very first publisher I queried, liked the book. And so that's how I got it published. But it was a long process. Anybody who's ever been a caregiver has a lot of feelings to sort through. And my book was, unlike a lot of books written about caregiving, it's fiction. And the reason it's fiction is that I did not actually move my father into my home with me, which the premise of the book is he is in the home. But for 9 years, I oversaw every aspect of his healthcare, his doctor's visits, his operations, his surgeries, his treatments, his therapies, his medicines, his accommodations. You know very well, your parents, you don't live with your parents, but you know how much time it takes to take care of them. And so you learn everything there is about your parents, everything you need to know, and more. And so I took those experiences being a caregiver and healthcare surrogate who was in a facility and um, put that
So,
together with the idea of my aging dog and caring for him. And so that they came together in the setting of the home and the family dynamics, caregiving for two elderly souls.
so what's interesting to me in doing this podcast is authors have different perspectives on getting published and using an agent and a publisher and going the self-publishing route. So you chose the route of you searched out an agent and then you found a publisher. So how did you come to that decision about that's the right track for you?
As I said, agents, and I had some connections to some good agents, and they were kind. And I had one agent who really liked the book, and she would keep in touch with me every month to say, I'm still trying to find a place for this. Agents were just concerned that the topic wasn't going to be something people would want to read about. And like I said, they were complimentary, but it wasn't going anywhere. And then I was reading a book called The Five Wishes of Mr. Murray Bride. And it was a fabulous book. And I was thinking, gosh, this has a lot of the same kind of tone and sentimentality as my book. And I thought, who published this? And I looked and found the name of the publisher, Black Rose Writing. And I submitted directly online. Like I said, I never thought about going directly to a publisher, but when I went to the website, it said, we have only one genre, our genre. And I thought, great, they're not trying to pigeonhole this book. So they asked for the full manuscript, and a couple of weeks later sent me a contract. And it turned out to be a very good collaboration. I'm glad that I went with it. I have self-published in the past. Um, you have a lot more control when you self-publish, but you don't have a lot of the same resources behind you. And so I thought this time I really wanted to get a publisher with resources behind me. And I was lucky enough to do that.
So I love that you actually figured out who the right publisher was by reading a book you loved. I think
Yes,
that's a great tip is to look for who publishes the books that you love and then think about that as a resource for you. One of our other authors who's joined, she actually had a friend who had a friend who was an agent. So she used that connection to find the right agent. I just think it's so interesting how people put their work out into the world and how you have to be courageous about putting it out there from the beginning.
yes.
Okay, so tell me about courage, as because you had such a nice reaction to the word courage. So what did courage mean to you as you were going through this process?
You could actually say courage of your convictions because I knew this was a good book and I knew there was a message in it. And I knew that caregiving was something that we have been overlooking in this country. And that, again, because it wasn't in the news, but ironically, sadly, the publication dovetailed with the uh, COVID virus, the pandemic, and caregiving became a very big issue during that time. So when they say the world's not ready for something, I felt like the world was ready for this. And it coincided in a way that I think it got a lot more attention, a lot more sales because it was about what it was about. People are looking for caregiving, um, caregiving tips, caregiving stories, caregiving information, sharing knowledge. And because this became something that we had to think about. But it's just if you know that you've written a book that you feel is a good book, you've done the very best you can with it, it has meaning, you think it'll have meaning for other people, because that's what it's about. It's about a book has to have meaning for other people, whether it's this is a great romance or this is a great mystery, or I can really get into this thriller or this caregiving book, women's fiction, whatever. I felt like I had a message and I wasn't going to stop until I could get it out there.
Oh, I love that.
Did query a lot of agents. And as I said, I got positive feedback. And I also belong to some wonderful writers groups on Facebook and with great administrators, great authors who were, become friends. And I had some beta readers who gave me feedback. And it was all positive. It was enough to say, this is good writing. I hope you can find a home for this. And I thought, I will. And again, I think what you just said, find something you love to read that you're reading and enjoying. This is a lot like my book. I have a good feeling about whoever published this. And I did. I went to the front of the book and looked and found the publisher. And now here we are. And he has actually, at this point, offered a contract, which I have not signed yet, for republishing Moral Infidelity, my first book. And he wants my next book, which is Ballet Bars. We're working on some, which is really interesting that, this time last year, I was just getting this offer and signing this contract. And now, because the book has done well, um, he wants two more of my books. I'm still undecided about that, where I want to go with it, but it's been a good publishing experience. Um, so I do feel like for me, I'd like to try to get to a broader market with a larger publishing company. I may or may not be able to do that, but I'm sure going to try. I'm going to go forward. I'm going to have that courage because now I've proven myself, and I feel like my next book is it's got such a different kind of theme to it, and yet there's a little bit of the elder care and caregiving theme in there. So, but it's a lot more fun. It's almost comical. It's passionate. It's informative. It's a bit of a mystery. It's just a different kind of book, but part of the same elements. And so keeping my fingers crossed.
So tell us about your writing process. What's your habit? How do you stay connected to your writing? What's your practice?
I'd like to start out by saying that all of my books start with an idea based on something in real life. And um, so I lay that down. And my writing process is first, I don't outline. I know a lot of authors outline. I would rather go through and lay down the words and not make it perfect from the beginning. Just keep going because I've got a story to tell and it's in my mind and I've got to get from the beginning to the end. And there's a lot I can do, will do to fill it in or make it better in between. And it's so surprising when you do it that way for me because the story keeps coming. I don't get stalled. It's like a flow. And if I stopped to try to edit too much in between or say, wait, stop, I want to research this more and get all the facts just right, I get bogged down. And then the creative process starts to dissipate. And so I find if I can just go from beginning to end, and I do a lot of editing. Interesting because in my new book, it's all written and there was one part of it at the very beginning I have a hard time in my mind justifying. It starts out with someone visiting her old ballet teacher and saying the ballet teacher and where she lives has just fallen into such decrepancy and disrepair and what's going on. And it was always based on seeing her every 6 months. And one of the things was 6 months. And gosh, that's a quick time for that whole thing to deteriorate. But then I went back and put COVID in there. I could not go down and visit her. I could not visit her like I normally would because I couldn't travel because of COVID. So now I've wrapped COVID into it to just bring it into a little more current, just a little, just enough to say, this is how COVID is affecting this. She's terrified of going to nursing homes. The ballet teacher, she's in her 80s and a Russian ballet teacher, and she's at a point where she had said to the protagonist before, promise me you won't let me go to one of these terrible places. Promise me. And this woman really has no control legally to do that. But she promises her. And so she stays with her. And then this other person moves in on her, a supposed long relative from Russia, a man who takes over this 80-year-old woman's life. And he's virtually keeping her a prisoner. She's emaciated, starving. She's on her way to a nursing home. And the worst thing that can happen to her, or death. And so the protagonist pulls together all the other ballerinas who were in those classes many years ago, and they find a way to save this woman from the worst fate, either going to a nursing home or death. So anyway, but there's a lot of humor in it. It's a little bit of yah-yah sisterhood, everybody coming together again after all these years. Just the story has a lot of life affirming messages as well. And so, as I said, I wrote it from beginning to end. I've edited it 3 or 4 times, big time. And now I'm re-editing it with the COVID. So that makes it just a little more timely. You don't have to make that a theme, but it makes it more timely. For when it does get published, we've gone through COVID. We can't ignore it. You know, there are books that have been coming out already that have COVID themes in them.
So tell us about what you've learned in terms of marketing a book, because it seems like that is as hard as writing the book.
It really is. I will say I had the good fortune this time with a publisher, and this is not a big publisher, but he's a committed publisher, and he has some very good books and some very good authors. And I would say look for a publishing company like that. Go to their website. Look at the covers of the books. What do they look like? Are they quality? How many books do they have in categories? How many authors do they seem to have? Do they seem to have any kind of marketing plans? And doing that, because they know how to do a lot more with Amazon ads and keywords, those kinds of things. So if you're going to go with a publisher, there's some who can help you, and there's some who really don't have the resources or the experience. So study up on that publisher. Click on the books that they're doing and go to Amazon and see how they're doing. Go to Barnes and Noble, see how they're doing. Because I know people who've gotten with publishers who do absolutely no marketing and you have to do it all yourself. But I would say it's important to have, I'm surprised when people don't even have a web page. You have to have a web page. You have to have made connections through different author groups. You need to build, I think one of the hardest things to do is to build a mailing list because everyone is so tired of being on mailing lists. Do you find that's true too?
Yeah,
But that is so key if you can get people by giving away a book or giving away a souvenir that has the theme, a beach bag, a coffee mug. Get people involved in giving you their email address in return for the chance to win something. And that's hard to do, but you have to put it out there and you have to put it on sites that you use. And I don't think that Twitter, I get a lot of sales from Twitter, but I think I've gotten a lot of um, recognition. People know who I am. And you've got to build that social media process. You just have to, because if you don't, you can put a book out there. And this is what happened with my first book, Moral Infidelity, when I self-published. I knew nothing. I barely put a website together. I just threw it out there thinking, oh, this is really going to go. And we all hope that when we self-publish that it's going to be good. And you know, it really, if you think your book is good, I think this is a thing to do too. I did enter in a couple of contests, good time contests, and it won. So that gave me more credibility. If you, I hesitate to pay $450 for a Kirkus review, but people swear by them, and even the biggest authors get Kirkus reviews. And you've got to have something that you can put on your marketing, in your marketing metadata on your book page, whatever, whether it's Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever it's going to go. A little bit of credibility. If you have any friends who are authors and they can give you a blurb. I have two New York Times bestselling authors who have become friends. I've built those relationships. I would build relationships through social media. And USA Today bestselling and Amazon bestselling authors who have given me fabulous blurbs and endorsements. And they're right at the top of the page, you know. So it's building a community. It's giving as well as hoping to receive. You follow them, you like their post, you, if you can afford to, read their books, get them to the library, Kindle Unlimited, leave reviews, be a person who becomes involved because it's in giving that you receive in this business. You can't just put yourself out there and say, do for me. So connections.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And I really do find the theme throughout the conversations with authors is around relationships and the
Yeah,
power of relationships. And it's not only the relationships that we want, but it's also being a good person to be in relationship with.
exactly.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And those things are fruitful. It may take a while, but as long as people see that you're present, that you're engaged, that it's not self-centered, that you appreciate all of the work that people do, um, there are an awful lot of generous souls out there. Really, there are a lot of writers who support other writers, even best-selling authors.
Yeah, I think being connected to a community of writers can be very inspiring and comforting
Right.
because the writers know what it's like to write. And when you read a book, you think, oh, this is so beautifully written, but you don't see the pain of
The
what goes
pain.
into writing.
There's so much pain.
Oh
That's
my
right.
God. Yeah, when you were talking
Exactly.
about the process of just putting it all out, getting the whole story written, that's what I try to do. But I'll tell you, as I'm trying to put out the whole story, my stomach hurts.
Why?
Well, yeah, I know I can't explain it, but I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. My stomach hurts. And then once I get the whole thing out, and it could be just crap, but I got the whole thing out. And then when I go
Exactly.
back, it's so much easier. I don't have a stomach ache. I enjoy it. But
Yes,
it just
yes,
hurts.
yes,
That
yes.
first draft just hurts. Oh my
It does, doesn't it? Because like I said, though, if I can get into that zone and that flow, and I know you know what I'm talking about because you've written a number of books, you're right. And you're thinking, I'm only at 45,000 words.
Oh, that's just the worst. It's the worst. I know.
So much. And you
I
need to
know.
write another
Oh,
30,000.
Yeah, I know. It's the, I
Yeah.
know. I used to think, what's the best way to do this? Do I want to give myself a commitment of a certain number of words every day, or do I want to give myself a certain amount of time? And I just went for time. If I really started counting the words, my stomach is hurting right now thinking about counting the words. So if I
Right, that's
just,
right.
if I
If
just
you
went
say,
by
I
time, I was better.
right. Well, I'm the same way because if you try to put down X number of words a day, you may, but I think they can become tortured words coming out because you just have to get 3,000, I promise myself. And you can start talking about brown foxes jumping fixes, just to get to that.
Yes.
So I
All good
absolutely
men
agree.
must come to the aid of their country. That's what I always think about, that typing thing that we learned.
There's another 1,000 words. I type that over and over. So I think that you can stifle creativity if you try to hold yourself to things that are that strict. And as we said, I can go back through and read. If you ever go back through and you read what you've written, you're like, it's really good. Yeah,
It
that's
always
that's
feels
the
so good. It
good
always feels so
part
good.
of the process. Really, I wrote that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Or, oh my God, I can't believe I wrote that, but I can fix it.
Right, but I could fix it. Here,
Yeah.
right, but I could fix it. Yeah.
And don't be too hard on yourself. But there's one thing that, in fact, I just got an email from someone and he's asking me about writing and publishing and everything. And thinking, gosh, he's asking for a lot of information. But right now he hasn't even finished the book and he's worried about all these things about publisher or self-publisher, this and that. And I just want to write him and say, I will. Most important thing you can do, the best place to spend your money is with an editor. And there are some really good editors out there. You agree? Yes. You're
Absolutely.
not going
That
to get.
is, yes, that is spot on. Great advice.
Thank you, because you can think that you've done it so well, and then you're so surprised when somebody comes back and shows you the error of your way, so to speak. And I was watching, there's a wonderful editor named Tiffany Yates Martin, and she's like editor to the stars, and she's just a fabulous person. Found her on Facebook, befriended her, read her book, which is incredible about editing. Everybody should read that if you're going to be a writer. Tiffany Yates Martin. I'm sorry, the name of it isn't coming to me right now. Intuitive editing. And she really, I mean, she charges $3,000 to $5,000 for editing. But there are a lot of people out there who are great editors who are a fraction. But she always gives out these great tips and find people like that and read what they have to say. Buy a book for $4.99 on editing and read it. And that way, anyway, there were three great authors she was interviewing, and two of them write together. And they said that they will work on a book. And they sold many books. They're bestsellers. And I think it's just perfect. And they send it off. They think, Tiffany's not going to find anything on here. It comes back all marked up. Single spacing pages of all that's wrong. They're like, oh my goodness. But you know what? They're best-selling authors, and trust the process, trust yourself, but do get somebody else, get other eyes on it, get an editor, because nobody's going to read your book. No publisher is going to want it, and no agent is going to take it one step further if they don't find it to be well edited.
Okay,
Yeah.
Rebecca, this was awesome. So, My Dad, My Dog is available on Amazon and at your website. So, what's your website address?
RebeccaJWarner.com, or you can just do Rebecca Warner author and it'll come up, top thing that comes up. And thank you for saying that. It's also available in bookstores. It's in Barnes and Noble. It can be available at your local bookstore. That's another good thing about a publisher. You get a lot wider distribution. So if you can get a publisher, and look for small publishing houses, they really do. They've really built up over the years to be very good advocates for authors who don't have those great agents to get them to Little Brown.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Rebecca. This was fun.
Thank you, Denise. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks,
Have a good
everybody,
week.
so much for listening and watching. And I just want to mention that our Caregiving Book Club is part of our resources available for libraries. We really believe that libraries can be this amazing hub of information and resources for family caregivers in the community. And we want to help libraries create that hub. So you can go to careyearsacademy.com/library for resources, including lists of recommended books. So we want you to take advantage of that. Thanks everybody so much for watching and listening. I'm Denise Brown. Take care. Bye-bye.